The last thing I expected when I stopped by my friend's house that Saturday afternoon was to spend the next hour moving furniture. My friend, Jake, had texted me earlier, asking if I could help his mom rearrange the living room while he was out running errands. Just move the couch against the other wall, he had written. Shouldn't take long. He was wrong. When I arrived, his mom, Linda, was standing in the middle of the living room with her arms crossed, studying the furniture like it was a complicated puzzle. Finally, she said with a smile, "My extra pair of hands has arrived." I laughed. Jake said this would take 20 minutes. He also thinks folding laundry means throwing it on his bed. We both laughed. Linda pointed toward the large sectional. "That needs to move over there." I grabbed one side while she pushed the other. After several awkward attempts, we finally got it into place. Then came the coffee table. Then the television stand. Then 2 heavy chairs. By the time we finished, I was breathing hard and wiping sweat from my forehead. Linda looked around the room. What? She tilted her head. "I don't like it." I stared at her. "You're kidding." She smiled innocently. "Maybe. You're going to make me move everything again, aren't you?" She laughed. "You're catching on." We rearranged the room twice more. Eventually, Linda stepped back and nodded with satisfaction. "Perfect." I dropped onto the couch. I'm never trusting Jake again. Linda sat across from me, laughing. "You know, you're surprisingly good at this. At moving furniture? At following instructions?" I raised an eyebrow. That sounded suspiciously like an insult. It wasn't. She stood and walked toward the kitchen. "Stay there. I have something for you." A few moments later, she returned with 2 cold drinks. I accepted mine. "Thanks." She sat beside me, leaving a comfortable amount of space between us. For a moment, the room was quiet. Then she looked around again. "You know what?" "What?" "I actually need one more favor." I groaned dramatically. "Of course you do." She smirked. "This one is easy." "What is it?" She pointed toward a large cardboard box near the hallway. "I need that moved into the garage." I stood up. "That's it?" "That's it." I grabbed the box and carried it toward the garage. But when I reached the doorway, Linda called out, "Wait." I turned. She was smiling. "What?" "Actually, bring it back." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're enjoying this?" "Maybe a little." I carried the box back and placed it where it had been. Linda folded her arms. "I changed my mind." "Again?" She nodded. "Now I need you to help me hang that picture." She pointed toward a large framed photograph leaning against the wall. I laughed. "You planned this?" "Maybe." I picked up the picture. "Where?" Linda walked over and stood beside me. "Right there." I held it against the wall while she stepped back to inspect it. "No, slightly higher." I raised it. "More to the left." I shifted it. "Perfect." I lowered it again. "You could have just asked me to hang it." She smiled. "I could have." "Then why all the furniture?" Linda shrugged. "Because I knew you wouldn't say no." I looked at her, amused. "You really are trouble." She laughed softly. "And you're coming back next weekend." "Why?" She pointed toward another room. "I haven't even started rearranging the dining room." I shook my head. I knew there was a reason Jake warned me not to get comfortable. Linda grinned. "He warned you?" "Yeah." "What did he say?" I smiled. "He said, whatever you do, don't let my mom talk you into helping with one thing." Linda laughed. Well, she picked up the picture and handed it back to me. Looks like he was too late. I couldn't help laughing as I followed her toward the dining room. Somehow, I already knew this wasn't going to be the last favor she asked for. The following Saturday, I made the mistake of answering my phone when Jake called. "Hey," he said. "You busy?" I immediately became suspicious. "Why?" "No reason." "Jake." He laughed. "Mom needs some help again." I sighed. I knew it. "What?" "She told me I was coming back." There was a pause. Then Jake started laughing. "Oh, man. She got you." "Got me?" "Dude, Mom hasn't rearranged anything in years. Suddenly she's redecorating every room because you helped once." I shook my head. I knew something was strange. "Just be careful," Jake said. "Why?" "My mom gets stubborn when she has a project." Before I could respond, he hung up. 20 minutes later, I was standing outside Linda's house again. She opened the door with the same amused smile. "You came back. You invited me." "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." She laughed and stepped aside. "I need help with the dining room." I walked in. The dining room looked perfectly fine. I stared at her. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing." "Then why are we changing it?" She smiled. "I got bored." I laughed. "You're impossible." She pointed toward the table. "Move it 6 inches toward the window." "That's the whole job?" "For now." I moved it. She studied it. 5 inches back. I stared at her. "You're enjoying this." "Maybe." After moving the table, chairs, and a small cabinet, Linda finally seemed satisfied. She stood in the doorway, examining everything. "You know," she said, "you're becoming very useful." "That's a dangerous compliment." "Why?" "Because now you'll keep finding things for me to do." She smiled. "Already did." I groaned. "What now?" "The attic." I looked toward the ceiling. "You're joking." "No," she handed me a flashlight. "There are some boxes up there I need brought down." I followed her to the attic stairs. The space was dusty and packed with old furniture. Linda pointed toward several boxes. "That one." I picked it up. "What's inside?" "Old photographs." "Want me to be careful?" "Very." I carried it downstairs. Then another. And another. After the 4th box, Linda stopped me. "That's enough." I placed the final box on the floor. She sat down beside it and opened the lid. Inside were dozens of old photographs. She picked one up and smiled. Jake was so tiny. I leaned closer. "He had hair?" Linda laughed. "Barely." We spent several minutes looking through the pictures. Then she found one that made her expression change. She stared at it quietly. "That's my husband," she said. I nodded. "He looks happy." He was. Her voice became softer. For the first time since I had known her, Linda wasn't teasing or joking. She simply looked at the photograph. "I haven't opened these boxes in years," she said. I smiled. "I'm glad you did." She looked at me. "Me too." Then, suddenly, that familiar mischievous smile returned. "So, I already knew what was coming." "What?" "I have one more favor." I laughed. "Of course you do." She pointed toward a small wooden cabinet. "I want that moved into the hallway." I stood up. "You planned this whole thing?" Linda grinned. "Maybe." I shook my head and reached for the cabinet. "Fine. But this is officially the last favor. She followed me with a smile. We'll see about that. By the time I moved the cabinet into the hallway, I was convinced Linda had secretly turned her house into a furniture warehouse. I placed the cabinet against the wall and stepped back. There. Linda folded her arms. Perfect. I wiped my hands. Now I'm leaving before you discover another piece of furniture. She laughed. Wait. I stopped. I knew it. She walked toward the kitchen. This really is the last favor. That's what you said 10 minutes ago. This one isn't furniture. I narrowed my eyes. That somehow makes me more nervous. She returned holding a small toolbox. I need help fixing this. She pointed toward a loose cabinet handle. I stared at it. You called me over for that? I didn't call you over. You came back. Because Jake said you needed help. And you came. I couldn't argue with that. I fixed the handle in less than 5 minutes. Linda tested it. Perfect. Now I'm definitely leaving. She smiled. Okay. I walked toward the front door. Then I heard her laugh behind me. What? She shook her head. Nothing. You're doing that thing again. What thing? That smile. She leaned against the doorway. Maybe I just like watching you get suspicious. I laughed. You know, Jake wasn't exaggerating. About what? He said you were stubborn. Linda raised an eyebrow. He said that? More than once. She crossed her arms. Well, he gets his stubbornness from me. That explains everything. For a moment, we both laughed. Then Linda's expression became more thoughtful. You know, I appreciate you helping me. I nodded. It's no big deal. It is to me. She looked around the living room. When you first came here, this place felt, she paused. Different. I waited. Too quiet, she finally said. I understood what she meant. The house had changed after her husband passed away. Jake had mentioned it once, but I had never asked Linda about it. You don't have to explain, I said. She smiled. I know. She looked at the rearranged furniture. It's strange. Moving things around made the house feel new again. Sometimes that's all it takes. She nodded. Sometimes. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and laughed. What? Jake. She handed me the phone. His message said, "Did she trap you into another project?" I laughed. I knew he would say that. Linda typed something back. I watched her. What did you tell him? She turned the phone toward me. He came willingly. I laughed. That's not exactly true. She smiled. Close enough. I finally reached for the door. Okay, seriously. I'm going. Linda nodded. Thank you. I stepped outside. Then she called after me. One more thing. I turned around. She was standing in the doorway. Next Saturday? I laughed. You're already planning another project? She shrugged. Maybe. What are we moving? She smiled. Nothing. That surprised me. Then what am I coming for? Linda's smile became playful. I'll tell you next Saturday. I shook my head. You really enjoy keeping people curious. Only certain people. I stood there for a second, wondering what she meant. Then she closed the door with a smile. As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed. A message from Jake. What did Mom ask you to do this time? I looked back at the house. I typed, honestly. I have no idea. A second message appeared almost immediately. Good luck. I laughed. Something told me I was going to need it. The following Saturday, I almost didn't go. I stood beside my car, staring at Linda's house and wondering what kind of mysterious favor she had planned. Then my phone buzzed. Linda, are you coming? I smiled and typed back, I'm outside. The front door opened almost immediately. Linda stepped onto the porch. You actually came. You invited me. I wasn't sure you'd remember. I've learned that ignoring you is dangerous. She laughed. Come inside. I followed her into the house. Everything looked exactly the same as it had the previous weekend. No furniture was waiting to be moved. No boxes were stacked in the hallway. No tools were lying around. I looked at her. So what's the emergency? Linda smiled. There isn't one. I blinked. What? She walked into the kitchen. I just wanted some company. That answer caught me off guard. I followed her. She had prepared coffee and breakfast. You could have just said that. I know. Instead, you made me think I was going to move another couch. She laughed. I had to make sure you'd come. We sat at the kitchen table. For the first time, there was no project between us. We simply talked. Linda asked about work. I asked about Jake. We laughed about his terrible cooking and his habit of leaving dishes everywhere. Eventually, Linda looked toward the living room. You know what's funny? What? When you first started helping me, I thought I just needed someone strong enough to move things. And now? She smiled. Now I think I needed someone to remind me that this house could feel alive again. I didn't know what to say. So I simply smiled. You're welcome. She nodded. Thank you. A comfortable silence settled between us. Then Linda stood and picked up her coffee cup. I do have one small favor. I laughed. There it is. She smiled. IW.